Oh, good evening. Welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. We've got Kirk here with us. I'm Craig. We're going to pick up where we left off a week ago on this program. For those who also listen to the Observations program, it has been posted. I know on BB's site he has actually put together the URL. It's a YouTube URL for that program, today's program, where we continued our discussion on the unreliable nature of the Christian scriptures. So that is available, and I would like to begin, though, with a little bit of a review of where we were last week. And, Kirk, what we determined, and you've spent a lot of time studying these two statements, is that there is no chance whatsoever that they apply to Yosha.
No.
It's not a question of, do they apply to Yosha and Dode? The Yosha would be the actual name of the individual that Christians call Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And this is the single most important, what they would call Old Testament or prophetic statement regarding their Jesus Christ. Here he is being born, and it suggests that he is not only born, which is an odd concept for God. I don't know how God can be born, but nonetheless, they don't bother to think that one through. That he is Almighty God, that he is the Prince of Peace, that the government's on his shoulder, and so they're of the belief that he's the end all of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, not a single statement in there applies to him.
That's right.
And you read it and say, oh man, if that doesn't apply to him, Christianity's through. But it's far worse than that, because the person it does apply to, Dode, who the world knows as David, Dode is the antidote for Christianity. He's the proof text against the religion. If Dode, no Paul. It's just that simple. Dode's life and relationship with Yahowah is in every possible conceivable way the antithesis of what Paul wrote. Mm-hmm. He violated the Torah in all manner of ways, and yet God viewed him as perfect. His entire life was devoted to writing lyrics, writing prose about the benefits of the Torah, how to observe the Torah, how to engage in a relationship with Yahweh, how to enjoy being part of God's family. So it is it's just a stunningly deadly concept for Christianity, because it demonstrates you don't need any stinking New Testament. The Torah is perfectly capable of saving, perfectly capable of allowing somebody to enter heaven. It explains how it should be observed and capitalized upon.
So well, the Torah declares itself to be that way. So either Yahweh's lying or he's not, or he's telling the truth, rather.
Right.
So
that's vastly worse than it just not being about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
The very fact that it's about Dode. And there's some other aspects of this that are really troubling for Christianity, which is, A, there was no virgin birth.
Yeah.
B, God cannot and was not born. The Son was not Almighty God. It's not what it says. The government was never on his shoulder and will never be on his shoulder.
No.
He wasn't a prince of anything, and he did not come to bring peace. He came to bring division.
With a sword to divide families even.
Right, yeah. I'm here to cut, to separate. I'm not here to bring peace. And what he talked about is, of course, the separation between father and son, mother and daughter, even husband and wife. The realization that if you want to be part of the covenant, you have to be willing to walk away from the human family to be part of God's family.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, that you need to separate yourself from your sons. Now in my case, I had to separate myself from my mother and father. They were all the things that God would view as being inappropriate. But I have a wonderful relationship with my sons and with our granddaughter, and so that's not what it's suggesting is. But do you want to be part of the family of God or part of the family of man? Is what it's suggesting. But anyway, those statements, Kirk, are just devastating. It's not only that it can't be Jesus Christ, but what it actually says is what's so revealing it. And I would say the third aspect of it is that virtually every Christian Bible parrots the same mistakes.
Yes.
And they know their mistakes. They know what they have written is untrue, and they have all said the same thing. I searched 20 different translations for every comment, and I only found one or two comments of the first 7 that were remotely accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So now what you have is this mess of you can't trust your translations. How are you supposed to know God if the people providing you access to His Word are misrepresenting His words?
I looked up the same things, and that's true. And I also looked up, sometimes some of the Bibles have the cross references, like on this verse, and they give you Matthew. So on this particular verse, it's Matthew, which begins where he's misquoted because he's talking about, behold, a virgin comes to a child. And then you look over, then I checked them and say, well, the word's still ben, son. So I looked it up. It's 1,282 times it's mentioned in the Torah, and none of them are virgins.
Right.
They're all human beings. And then you go, the other references they give you is Luke, which is a disreputable source to begin with, but 132 and 33. And
hearsay at best. Yeah,
hearsay. And then you have John, which is not even related. It's very loosely related.
John doesn't even talk. Yahowah doesn't even talk about these.
That's what I mean. They threw him in there for some reason, but it's not. It has nothing to do with this particular verse. But
nothing. No.
Thing you there. And then the other one, the slam dunk, of course, for them is the Hebrews. But it says, but this man, because he's continueth forever, in the Old English Shakespearean, hath a unchangeable priesthood, and that's about the only reference, and they try to connect that up, and I'm going,
but how can they have him? How can they suggest that he was continueth forever? Excuse my Elizabethan. But since they claim that he was born, so if you were continueth forever, you can't be born, because that means you didn't continueth forever beyond that, and if your whole thing is the death stake and God nailed dead to a stick, well then He didn't continue it forever, did He?
No. And that's not
the great hiccup.
And he wasn't a priest, so I mean.
No, he wasn't a priest. He was not a Eloi.
No.
So wrong. It's just like when they say that he was the prince of peace. He wasn't a prince.
He was never a prince.
No. Never a prince. And he absolutely made it positively clear. It's the one thing that's repeated probably more than any other statement from him is, do not think that I came to bring peace. I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring division. But that's really what He's all about. That's what God's all about, is separation. You have to be separated from the family of man if you want to be part of the family of God. That's why it's called set apart. So let's begin. We'll go through the first 7 just as a reminder of where we have been. It begins, and these are amplified renderings. I mean, I want our listeners to know that each word conveys more information than simply, for example, the first is key, and it means a lot more than 4. So and in this particular case, some of its amplified meanings are particularly germane. For indeed, because truly and surely, emphasizing this statement, and to show a contrast with what has come before, while conveying causation to reveal the reason He exists, while also demonstrating how these things may appear simultaneous, even to overlap, while in actuality they transpire. Now, one of the reasons that's really important is that the first 7 references to this individual took place right around 1000 BCE. The second set of 7 references to this individual take place in 2033 CE, 3,000 years later. Mm-hmm. It's also important to recognize that the statements which precede this are Yahweh's description of what's going to happen on Har Megiddo, which is the secular humanist war against Israel.
Israel.
Yeah, and what he says, he's going to annihilate the combatants just like he did on the day of Midian.
Gideon.
The Midians. M-A-Y.
Yeah,
M-A-D-Y-N in Hebrew, but they're called the Midianites in English.
Right.
So that's what. So what precedes this is a reference, Kippurim, in 2033. So that's why that 4. You need to understand that it is presenting things that may appear to be simultaneous, even to overlap, while in actuality they transpire in an entirely different time. Okay, I'm going to give you each of the first 7. The first one is a child, an ordinary boy who grows up to become a young man was born. He was conceived and brought forth through a woman impregnated by his father, arriving among us and near us. 2, a son, a male descendant, the offspring of a mother and father, was provided and placed near us for a limited period of time. He was given for our benefit and was appointed and bestowed for us, and he was devoted to facilitating our approach. You know, you notice that in both of these cases I used past in English was.
Yes.
And you know that Hebrew does not have past or future tenses. Mm-hmm. And so why, do you have any recollection as to why I'm not using, because, you know, in English we have no choice. We do not have tenses like Hebrew where things are just true throughout time. And we don't have a concept in Hebrew called the perfect or imperfect. Imperfect, mm-hmm. ongoing, perfect, mm-hmm. Concluded. A finite period of time. Do you have any idea why I made both of these past tense as opposed to present tense or future tense?
Where you are in the context of this event. I mean, this is taking place in 1000 BC.
Both verbs. Yalad was the verb on born, and Nathan the verb on placed before. Both verbs were written in the perfect conjugation, which speaks of a completed action. A completed action cannot be in the present, because the very fact you're talking about in the present means that it's ongoing. So when the English translations say is born and is given, sorry, it's the perfect. Now, is it possible to have a completed action in the future? Yes, it is. But it is very odd to write it that way and to use the perfect to speak about the future. But more importantly, if speaking about the future, whether it be Yosha or Dode, since at that point they are eternal beings, you would never have used the perfect, ever.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, they're ongoing forever. But so it was written in the perfect. That's why it was, and this was written.
Is as they normally write it, yeah.
Right. This was written right around 700 BCE. Dode had been. Yosha had not. So the very fact it's written in the perfect is part of the issue here. But of course, the biggest issue is you could not have a more generic "a child is born" than Yaled, Yalad. Doesn't get any more generic than that. This is not a virgin birth. There is nothing special.
And, it wouldn't even make you raise your eyebrows if you were reading it.
No. Yeah, and as you pointed out, son is used thousands of times,
mm-hmm.
and so is Nathan, the Hebrew
mm-hmm.
word for to give, to place, to put, to bestow.
Right.
And there's nothing miraculous about it either. And by the way, let me just point out something that should be obvious, since this does speak about God. Doesn't call him Almighty God, but nonetheless does speak about God. But it does speak about a father and his enduring, everlasting nature. If in fact he is everlasting, he can't have
mm-hmm.
been born.
That's true.
Just impossible. So you have an eternal conflict. Okay, number 3. So then, with regard to the person being written about, the means to engage and endure, to be empowered and liberated, should we desire to learn from his mindset, was, is, and shall always exist as part of the continued succession of events which transpired upon his ridgeline, and in conjunction with his repetitive work. The eagerness to which he pursued his calling early in his life, and the passion to shoulder and not shirk responsibility. His designation, reputation, and renown was read, recited, and designated as, and should be invited and summoned as, called out and welcomed as, and should be known and reckoned as. Now, there's a couple of things here.
There's two things in there that grabbed me.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, this repetitive work. When Yosha was not a repetitive work, his work was, he had one real serious job to do, and that's Pesach.
Yeah.
And that's not
Pesach.
repetitive. That was done once.
Yeah, and his soul, Matzah.
Right. Well,
yeah,
I mean that event
yeah.
of Matzah week, from
yeah, uh-huh.
And then you when you translated it as designated reputation, and does he summoned and called? Those works been read for 3,000 years. Yosha, you can't even find any reputable source that we could hang our hat on. So,
yeah,
once again,
yeah.
can't be him.
And we're really told about Yosha's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim once. Yeah. We're not told about the events where he celebrated Pesach, because he would have celebrated Pesach 33 times.
Absolutely.
Matzah 33 times. Bakurim 33 times. We're told about once of them. It's not because he didn't celebrate the other 33. It's because he came.
It's remained to the story.
For the one.
No.
Yeah, that's it's how he observed them that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact of the matter is that what this was presented was from Masara, and if the words only used here in Yashaya 6 and in 7, appears twice, both times here in this one prophecy, and so you have to render it correctly. And while the government was on, I can't say it was on Dode's shoulder. He didn't shoulder the government, but Dode certainly was the head of the government. Yosha never was. So if a Christian wants to render this based upon religious tradition as government, then it's over for the Jesus cult, because the government was never on his shoulder. And as a matter of fact, the government, which was Rome, crucified him.
Was definitely not involved with him.
Yeah, when it talks about the Roman government, he said, give unto Rome that which is Rome's. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's definitely cannot be Yosha in this regard. And the actual word is based upon Sarah, and it's prefaced by me, which is an interrogative that encourages you to ponder and to search the meaning of Sarah, which is to engage, to endure, to be liberated, and to learn. Mm-hmm. So, Dode. That was Dode's life, providing us with 100 Mizmor Psalms and 25 Proverbs, Mishat Proverbs, so that we could learn how to engage and endure with God from his mindset.
Now, why is it when they hit Mizra they do that and they go to government, when it immediately tells you in every lexicon go to Sarah?
Oh, yeah, every lexicon. Every lexicon tells you to go to Sarah. And then, if you're familiar with Hebrew, you know that the ma and the me preface to a lot of words, like one of the most important words in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalm is mikra.
Right.
It's prefaced the same way that Mesera is prefaced. Mesera is the mi of me, just as Mikra is. It's based on Kara, and it adds the mi, so it tells you to ponder the implications of the invitations to be called out and meet with God. Just as this one says, I want you to think about everything that you can learn about Sarah, about engaging and enduring, being liberated by and being empowered by God. So it's so obvious that is the case. And it's so obvious that it can't be government because, A, past tense, now looking forward from this prophecy, but past tense from our perspective in time, the government most certainly was not on Yosha's shoulder. First of all, you cannot shoulder a government, but second of all, the government in play was Rome, and it crucified him. And second, the follow-up prophecy on 9:7 in Yeshaya tells us for certain that the seat of honor and the government is Dod's, David's. Yeah. So in the future, it isn't even Yosha's. So for them to have written this says that they were not thinking. And for Christians to parrot it says that they're not thinking. Now beyond that, shakam, which is the word that was rendered shoulder, unlike Mesera, where you just can't get government out of it. With shakam, you can absolutely get shoulder out of it. Except shakam has a lot of meanings, and shoulder is only one of many meanings of the word. And shoulder doesn't work relative to government. You can shoulder a burden. One does not shoulder a government. If you're a head of the government, it is an asset, not a liability. Particularly if you're a potentate. If you're king, the government is your source of power and wealth and liberty and control. It's not a burden to be shouldered if you're king. So you cannot, just because a word can be translated shoulder doesn't mean that you should or can translate a shoulder. In this context, it doesn't work. But if you think, what was the most important aspect of Dod's life relative to Yahweh? The ridgeline of Moriah. It's where he not only built his home, but that's where he established, the capital of Yehuda. It's where he bought the threshing floor of the Jebusite, Yebusi. It's where the house of Yahweh was built. It's where Yosha fulfilled Pesach. It's where Abraham met with Yahweh to affirm the covenant. It's that ridgeline that is essential. It's where Yahweh is coming back. It's where he's going to establish his home. So when you realize that it can be translated ridgeline, and that ridgeline is just so stunningly important to engaging and enduring with God, being empowered and liberated by him, because everything that matters took place on that ridgeline, why would you render it shoulder? I mean, there's no place more important than that ridgeline. That is Zion. It's Moriah.
You could add responsibility to lead and teach. If you look at the letters, you've got words that, because you have the sin.
Shechem, words. Nourishing words.
So you have nourishing words with a helping hand to restore by cleansing water, if you wish, or Ruach Kodesh.
Yeah.
So everything.
The open hand is the sign of handing somebody a gift. Offering something to someone is because there's two hands in the Hebrew language. The Yod is one of them, the Y, and the K is the other. And in this case, this is the palm of a hand open, which is the sign of I'm holding out a gift for you.
Gift.
That's fair. Means you've given you something.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one is I'm holding it out because I want you to grab hold so I can lift you up. So we can walk hand in hand. But this one is, I'm offering something to you. You know, cleansing waters, nourishing words.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's being offered. Now, the next is Shem, and again, it's just like Shakam. Just because Shakam can be, in certain places, translated shoulder, doesn't mean you can translate it shoulder every place. Same thing is with Shem. Just because Shem can be translated name doesn't mean that you can translate it name every place. And this is one of those places where you can't translate it name. This is one of the places where there isn't a single name that follows. So there's no name that follows.
It makes it complicated.
It's not so complicated. And what is Shem? So you have to look. What else does Shem mean? Well, it means reputation, renown.
Name of
okay.
renown, yeah.
So his designation, his reputation, his renown shall be read and recited, designated, invited and summoned, was called out and welcomed as, known and reckoned as. All right. So each of these next things, this is now 4, 5, 6, and 7. We have, we're in Hebrew, where modifiers follow the nouns. So we have to, but in English, modifiers precede the nouns. You know, it's in English it may be wonderful counselor, but in Hebrew it would be counsel wonderful. So
tricky.
You're right. You need to put them in the right order. So this is a counselor. So this person is going to be known as a counselor providing outstandingly brilliant advice, a consultant who offers directions and thought-provoking guidance for us to deliberate, which are extraordinarily insightful, an analyst who proposes the agenda and reveals the purpose of the marvelous plan which sets us apart, an advisor and mentor who speaks out and urges those who listen to follow the directions and thinking he is presenting, because it's reasonable and valuable and wonderful, it's empowering, and it's prophetic. This is talking about a person.
Mm-hmm.
Not talking about God. Now, the person is talking about God. The person's counsel is valuable and wonderful and beneficial, insightful, because they're providing advice on God. But that is what Dode is the single most proficient person in the history of mankind at doing. Yeah, if you want to know why Yahweh viewed Dode as his beloved son, it's because he was the counselor providing astoundingly brilliant advice about the thing that God cared the most about, which was his covenant and Torah.
Well, now, I think when you say that, and I look at that and think about it a minute, you've got Yahusha said some marvelous things, but only said them to the select crowd. He really didn't want everybody to know.
Well, actually, two things. One, two things. One is that it would be very difficult to view what's called the Sermon on the Mount as counsel. Sermon on the Mount is a lecture.
Yeah, that's just like a warning. This is what you're going to do.
Man, that is a lecture. I'm just going to lay it all out here for you, folks.
Yeah.
And obviously Christians don't understand. They don't get it, but that was a lecture.
Mm-hmm.
It was his life's dissertation. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's why I'm going to do it, and this is the way you should interpret it. And when he spoke of a counselor, he specifically says, "I'm not the counselor." You'll recognize the counselor because we have a lot in common, but I have to leave for the counselor to come.
Mm-hmm.
So, why? Because the set-apart spirit was upon him at that point, returning to him post-Bakurim. And so he said, I got to leave for the counselor to come. So he couldn't be the counselor. Just read your own text, Christian. It was famous at. Okay, number 5. Mm-hmm. It's Gibor El. It cannot be Almighty God. Almighty God would be El-El, or Al-El, or El-Al.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That would be Almighty God. Or just El by itself means Almighty God. But Gibor speaks of a person. And there isn't any one of the lexicons that doesn't know that. They all know that.
No, I've got a Yeah, 3 or 4 sentences from different lexicons. Yes, that's exactly what it says. It doesn't change anything. It's exactly what it says. Mighty one on earth, valiant.
Right.
Strong, mighty person.
Hey, the Nephilim.
Yeah, we talked about it in great detail when we did the Nephilim ones. Yeah.
Right, the Nephilim were Gabor. David, Dode, was Gabor.
Yes, he was a mighty man.
He was a
soldier.
Mighty man. Oh, what a champion! I mean, he wasn't a Gabor in every aspect of his life, but he was a warrior.
Yeah.
He was head of the government.
He walked down there with his stones and his slingshot. He was
courageous, and he was a champion on behalf of God. So when he used Gabor, he's not speaking. This is not a modifier of God. It's a descriptive of an individual who speaks about God. So it now becomes a valiant and heroic individual with a prominent standing in the community of God, a powerful and courageous person who prevails on behalf of the Almighty, a champion confirming the influence and strengthening nature of the Mighty One. That's what Dode
What
did.
is that written in? Is that written in like the hippo perfect or the hippo imperfect?
Well, no, they're not. There's no verb here. This isn't a verb.
Okay.
This is a noun. In fact, it's actually two nouns.
I'm sorry, I was looking at Gabor.
But often in Hebrew, you have nouns that serve as modifiers, but it's a modified noun. But this is two nouns. El is a title, and Gabor is a noun. Gabor is a noun that describes this individual. So there's the hiffle and the like. That would be a verb. No, these are just two nouns.
Okay. No, it was my error. I'm looking at my notes here, and I can't read my notes where it says Gabor, and then it has the verb of Gabor. So I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah. The verb, the verbal form of it is Gabor, but it was written as a noun. Number 6, an eternal witness providing restoring and elevating testimony, sharing evidence which is enduring, conveying information regarding the perpetual and continued existence of the Father. Well, there's no question that Ab is Father. They got that part right. That's all Ab means. In fact, if you were to try to amplify Ab, good luck.
Good luck, huh?
Yeah. What is there besides Father? I mean, you want to go into Daddy, Papa, Dad, male progenitor of the family? I mean, Ab means Father. That's all it means. Now, what we figured out the last time is it's either Ad or Ed, and written exactly the same way in the Hebrew text. If it's Ad, it's a preposition. It would mean until Father. The most common rendering of the preposition wouldn't be eternal Father, it would be until Father, near Father, almost Father. But as Ed, which is written, Ed would be the noun. It would follow the same concept here. It wouldn't be a preposition. It would be, in fact, a noun, two nouns, one descriptive of the other. It would be describing Dode's role in relationship with the Father, which was Ed is to provide eternal and restoring testimony. Ed is a witness sharing evidence, which is enduring, conveying information regarding that which is perpetual, continued, renewing. So he's the eternal witness providing restoring and everlasting testimony regarding the Father. Again, perfectly phrased statements, all of which point to Dode. Number 7, the one who conveys and represents the official position, the authorized and endorsed patron who acts and delivers the sanctioned means to prevail regarding reconciliation and restoration, salvation and companionship, restitution and redemption, peace and prosperity, salvation and favor, an association based upon mutual affection and friendship, delivering healthy and prosperous contentment and tranquility. Well, all of those wonderful things, from reconciliation to restoration to salvation to companionship. That's all from shalom.
Shalom.
You know, to call shalom, just to render it peace, as we talked about, is like saying of the Torah. Well, it's nice.
Sure. Well, that's nice.
That's nice.
That's so nice.
Oh, it's so nice.
Paul would say
no, shalom is it's the basis of the city of Yerushalayim.
Yerushalayim. Yeah.
Yaru means Yaru is Yara is the verbal root of Torah. It means source of teaching, guidance, direction. Is Yara, and shalom is reconciliation, restitution. If you reconcile a relationship, you got peace in it, but you got to be really careful about what you're getting it fully rendered in. And sar is a word that speaks of an official position, an authorized endorsement, a patron, all of these things. And Dode was all those things. Yosha was not.
If I have any value to this show, the one thing that perhaps the only little strength I have in this regard is I've looked every one of these things up, and even though I get twisted sometime as we're talking, I'm looking at it. It's because I'm reading your stuff and trying to look on my notes, which I obviously didn't write well enough to. But everything you said, if somebody wanted to debate this, it's all there. I mean, and I'm using some of the most common sources that anyone could use, and I do it pretty much on purpose. I have a few other things that I can go check further, but most of it is so straightforward that anyone who looked in most of the lexicons that you list, which everyone has, I don't care from Strong's to whomever, that's exactly what it says. All you have to do is take the time and put it down.
Yeah. Now, you do have to spend a little time, Kirk. You can't just pick the first thing up and run with it, because all these lexicons were written. If you have perspective
to begin with, and you know what the context is, and then you should be able to flesh it out.
Correct. You'll find next to add everlasting and eternal, but it's only to justify the translation. Then when you read the rest of it, you say, well, it's a preposition. It means, until. And so, and then if you look at, well, what other words, since he's not the preposition, Father, what other words are written with the same letter? So it does take some time. It's all really accessible, but it takes some time to get there. You got to have a filter. You have to have an open mind. You have to have the right perspective.
And I've got from one source the eternal witness, perpetuity during the lifetime of a king, witness testimony from Adah. And it goes on and on and on. It's just it's there. So I mean, it's not like you're throwing a loop that is hard to find. It's there. It takes time to find it, but
it's one of the reasons too that we accompany
out of the top of your head.
Yeah, of course. And it's one of the reasons we accompany this with commentary. People know, okay, here's the way that you go about the process of trying to figure out what the words mean and how they should be translated. And for example, shoulder is right, but it's wrong in this context. So you hate to walk people through so they have some understanding, because I don't think most people are accustomed to questioning these kinds of things. And if you're not willing to question these kind of things, you just aren't going to get there.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to question them. You've got to be able to think rationally. Yeah, you have to be able to think, okay, I know yet what Yahweh is like. I know what he thinks, what he has said. Therefore, let's make certain that we render this in a manner that's consistent with who he is, based upon the words that were chosen. So, there's nothing difficult about it, but you can't say that it's easy either, because it does take some time, and it does take some discipline, and it takes work. And how many days did you spend just on these two passages? Oh, God,
now it's about 4 days.
Yeah.
Checking, rechecking, or as much time as I had in those days, and sometimes it was pretty late to the night. So only because I write slow and I compute even slower.
Well, because if in fact these conclusions are correct, Kirk, It's the ultimate nail in the coffin of Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's the ultimate affirmation that we have been right all along when we said, your attention ought to be focused on Dowd. He's the son born. He's the son who was placed before us. That's why Yahweh called him. He is my beloved son, and I am his father. All right, so after the one who conveys and represents the official position on reconciliation, we read, tremendously increasing the ability to learn about and appropriately respond to the means to engage and endure, acting upon the capacity to be liberated. Now, the English translations all want to take lamb and pretend that lamb is really key, K-Y.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. I mean, we've got the Great Isaiah Scroll, we've got the Masoretic text. They all say the word there is not key. Key could be for.
Mm-hmm.
It would be shortchanging it. But lamb can't be for. Lamb is a contraction of an extraordinarily commonly used and important verb, lamad. And you don't have to look very far to find lamad. I mean, I'm sure when you were checking up lamb, did you stumble upon lamad, looking for the verbal root?
Mm-hmm.
And lamad isn't just the Hebrew word for teach, because I think there are like 12 or something. Isn't that about the right number? Hebrew words for teach.
I'm pretty sure I'd have to. I could probably dig it up fairly quickly.
But there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
That are the Hebrew word. There's a lot of Hebrew words for teach. So there are 12. That's the actual number. 12 different words for teaching in Hebrew. Yeah. So when you realize that there's 12 words for teach, well, for example, Yara, the basis of Torah.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrew word for teach. You have to look up, well, how do they differ? Why would you have, it's like Eskimos. I mean, Eskimos, as I understand it in their language, they have a dozen words for snow. It's like a pilot. We talk about,
I've heard that.
we talk about different kinds of ice, clear ice, rime ice on an airframe. It describes the consistency of that ice, because it's a huge difference in how it's going to affect the airfoil and the airframe. And so we strive to define it as opposed to just have ice. And Eskimos have, a dozen different words for snow. Well, there's nothing more important to Yahweh than teaching. His Torah means to teach. So he has 12 different words to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so each of them has a different shading. Like, for example, he didn't say of Dowd that he was the Yara, which is the source of teaching, guidance, and direction. Because he's not the source. Yahweh is the source.
No, Yahweh is the source.
Right. So he is not the source.
The Torah is the source.
Right. Yeah. So it says that he's Lam from Lamad. Well, what is Lamad? Lamad is to learn and then teach what you learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's the process of first becoming, like the Greek concept is disciple. Disciple is a learner who then helps others learn.
Mm-hmm.
What Lamad says is that Dowd studied the Torah and came to learn about God, and then through his Psalms and Proverbs shared what he learned. That's what we're doing. I think we're playing an extremely important role, and Yahweh seems to acknowledge it through Yashayah. But there is nothing, Kirk, not anything that we have come up with or have come to know or have shared that wasn't available to everyone the world over. Nothing. 100% of what we've come to know and share, we learn by reading the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. By coming to understand what was in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, thinking about it, and then forming conclusions based upon what we had learned. There is nothing of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of unique and profound insights that we have published over this last 15 years. There's nothing that wasn't available to everyone. Well, Dode studied the Torah, and he reported on the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
He learned the Torah. He taught the Torah. That's what we are doing. We learn the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. We have more than he did. We have Torah, prophets, and Psalms. You know, he wrote the Psalms, so all he had was the Torah. But we studied it, and we came to know it, understand it, analyzed it, and then shared what we have learned. That's what Dode is doing. That's what lamad means. So, lam is the contracted form of lamed, which means to learn and then teach, as is the case with Rab, which was also in this particular text. It says Rab lam. Rab is tremendously, abundantly, greatly, extensively, plentifully, to the greatest extent possible. But did anybody provide more teaching than Dode?
Name one.
No, I mean the only person you could, only person that you would say is that could be put in the same sentence with Dode would be Moshe.
Yeah, but
and with
he
Moshe,
took dictation and just read the dictation.
No,
I mean,
I
read his dictation
in the Torah, the first 4 books of the Torah are dictation.
That's true.
Dabarim. But Debarim, the last book, is in fact Moshe saying, these are the things that I think are the most important. This is what they mean. I want to reinforce them so you remember them. I want you to apply them to your life. And so, there's a book, Debarim. Yeah. A really important book. It's not shortchange the fact that Moshe is one awesomely important. He's the one person you put in the same sentence with this. But, the book of Debarim is a far cry from 100 Psalms, 25 Proverbs. I mean, you've got one of the Psalms by itself that is the 119th, that is 22 stanzas of 8 points each, going through the Hebrew alphabet, all 22 letters in alphabetical order, to explain how to observe and benefit from the Torah.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, Debarim is a tremendous book. I love Debarim. But the 119th Psalm is more powerful. Because there's nothing in Debarim that isn't in the first 4 books.
4. Yeah.
But in terms of telling you how to observe the Torah and capitalize upon it, such that God would say to you that you are what Dode was, righteous, perfect, my beloved, well, then you want to turn to the 119th Psalm, and that's just one of 100 Psalms he wrote.
Well, then you have all the story of his life, which is a teaching instrument in itself.
Correct. Yeah, as they reflected in the 2 volumes of Samuel, the Words for Our Day and Chronicles, Rulers, Kings, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Samuel. And then I don't think there's anybody who is mentioned more often throughout the prophets than Dode.
No, it's here.
Yeah, he's the only name that's mentioned, by the way, in this prophecy. So,
in this whole passage, yeah.
Yeah, in this prophecy, he's the one name that's mentioned. So if you're looking for who it is, well, if they give you one name,
a good clue.
Yeah, there's a heck of a clue. So tremendously increasing the ability to learn about something and respond appropriately to it. And what is it again? It's ha-misra again. Now, do you think that God is telling you, boy, this is your tremendous opportunity to increase your knowledge about government? Wasn't it about Dode's predecessor that God broke into a lecture and said, listen, if they want a government of men, then they're rejecting me. Let's just make it You don't need to know anything more than this. If they want a government of men, they're rejecting me. So do you think that God's going to say, I'm going to provide you with some really wonderful, enduring insights about teaching about government?
Yeah, well, he did in Samuel. He says, that's what you want.
Yeah, he did, but it was all negative.
Absolutely. About 12 times.
Absolutely. Yeah, so preceding Dode, Yahweh said, government is out to rob you, it's out to control you, out to turn your sons into soldiers, out to take your production and money, turns it into weapons, all that will serve them, and then they're going to prop themselves up by bribing those around them. But there's that trial of the senator that ended up hung, the Democrat senator that ended up with a hung jury, and he's all excited because he says, "Oh, that means that I have been exonerated." No, it doesn't mean he's been exonerated. If you read what that man was guilty of doing and who he worked with, make your toes curl.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy that bribed him is in jail for tens of millions of dollars of welfare fraud, and this guy was offered every manner of gift for getting the government to back off him and let him continue to perpetrate his fraud. I mean, it just is revolting. But it's the nature of government.
Yeah.
So this one is pretty straightforward, and it validates that Mishra is not the government, tremendously increasing the ability to learn and appropriately respond to the means to engage and endure, acting upon the capacity to be liberated and empowered. That's what Dode's life. Now, what's interesting, of course, here is that if you look at the English Bible translations, and particularly, they all rendered Lam Ra Ha Mishra for the increase in his government. Now, how could you say for the increase in his government when Dode's government didn't increase?
Not talking about a government.
It started off as Yisrael. It ended up as Yisrael. That's just the fact of the matter is. And that's the last thing God would want to increase is the government. But yet, the English Standard Version, the King James Bible, the King James 2000 Bible, the American King James Version, the New Heart English Bible, the American Standard Version, the Darby Bible Translation, the English Revised Version, the Word English Bible, and Webster's Bible all rendered it for the increase of his government. Others were wrong in different ways. The New International Version went with of the greatness of his government. Of the New Living Translation, the NILT, published, his government and its peace will never end. I mean, where'd they get that? No reference to peace here. The New American Standard Bible offered, there will be no end to the increase of his government. The Holman Christian Standard Bible authored, the dominion will be vast, and its prosperity will bring immeasurable prosperity. Oh, no, say its prosperity will never end. Excuse me. I skipped a line. So its dominion will be vast, and its prosperity will never end. It's not what the words say. Well, the Net Bible suggested his dominion will be vast, and he will bring immeasurable prosperity. To this mix, the International Standard Version proposed of the growth of his government, and God's Word translation composed, his government and peace will have unlimited growth. No word for growth there, nor unlimited, nor in this case, peace. There's no shalom here.
Wow.
It's just bad stuff. Loving a big crowd, the Jubilee Bible 2000 proposed, the multitude of his dominion and the peace shall have no end. Well, if it's big, if it's got a multitude, it ain't part of God's world. Catholics craving a return to Catholics craving a return to the holy days of the Holy Roman Empire. And their Douay Reims Bible actually had the audacity to write, his empire shall be multiplied. His empire shall be multiplied. Last and least, the misnomer called the Young's literal translation gave us, to the increase of the princely power. Well, at least they saw the Tsar. And
the Tsar,
at
least the leader.
Miss Sarah, yeah. Okay. The alternative is to learn from the best, who would be Dode, tremendously increasing the ability to learn about and, to the largest extent possible, appropriately respond to the means to engage, providing an abundance of information while imparting outstanding instruction. Learned as a student, teaching how to become familiar with the guidance needed to accept the provision, to endure, acting upon the means to be liberated, diligently studying, and then explaining the particular pattern of behavior associated with the who, what, why, and how, associated with the capacity to be persistent and persevere, growing on a scale of spatial dimensions as a disciple, eager to learn from the one taught by the best, who received extensive, clear, and compelling revelations, which prepared him to intelligently convey the mindset needed to probe and question the means to awe-inspiring enlightenment and enormous empowerment. Every time I read one of Dode's Psalms, I probably don't get all of that in my mind, but that's the picture I have.
Yeah.
When I read one of Dode's Psalms, it's just what this conveys.
But at some point when we have an 8 or 9,000 word vocabulary in Hebrew instead of 490,000 English words, we'll get it real quick. But this is that's what you have to say that much in order to get the whole gestalt, I think.
Yeah, that's true. And having done this now 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 15, 16 years.
Yeah, this flashes for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, gradually I'm beginning to think in Hebrew. Gradually. It's a slow process, but you're really getting close when you start thinking in Hebrew. When you start thinking about the presentation of what it means to be perfect or imperfect in the conjugation relative to time and ongoing behaviors, or what the various stems do relationally as they affect the relationship between the subject and the object, and the volitional moods, and then just these very concrete, as you call them, very concrete terms. And so after a while, you do it enough, you begin to think in Hebrew. And then all you're trying to do now is once you think in Hebrew, you're trying to convey it in a language that the world speaks, which would be English. So we're attempting to understand the message in Hebrew and convey it to the greatest ability we have. Yeah, in English. Yeah. So it continues. So now, as a result, wa is and so, then adding these things together collectively. As a result, law, therefore, and accordingly, facilitating our approach. Preposition again, it means to approach, to come near. Reconciliation, restoration, and complete satisfaction. Guess what appeared again? Shalom.
Shalom.
Yeah. Again, to render shalom, peace is not inaccurate; it's inadequate.
It's small, too small.
Yeah,
too big.
It's like saying, "Can you tell me about the Torah?" Well, it's nice. Well, it is nice. So as a result, reconciliation, restoration, complete satisfaction, shalom, the blessings of an entirely favorable circumstance and total contentment, overwhelming prosperity and affection, tranquility and companionship, safety and salvation. Shalom is a relationship term on steroids. Deliverance from all pestilence and from the plague of death in a healthy and satisfying relationship. Now we have are without end. On kuts, never cease, cannot be negated, are unbounded and limitless. Where? Before the throne and upon the seat of honor, al-Keseh, in association with the high status and the dignified and empowered garment, the source of power, adorning and covering the royal authority of Dowd, the beloved. Now, is there any chance that when it says of Dowd, that it really God had a senior moment and he really meant to say of Jesus?
Yeah, no, Yahweh doesn't have a senior moment.
No.
I have a lot of them.
Is there any chance that those dastardly Jews, after the event, changed this to write Jesus out and write David N? No, because we've got copies of this that date back to past 200 BCE.
Way before them,
Right.
Before they take over.
And by the way, guess who didn't have a throne? And guess who did?
Yahusha didn't. Dowd did.
Correct. And therefore, as a result, reconciliation, restoration, complete satisfaction are without end, throne and the seat of honor of Dowd. Now, when I think of Keseh means throne, but it also means seat of honor. But Keseh also means it's an empowering garment.
Yes.
Yeah, to wear, to cover, to adorn.
I have it right here. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Keseh means all of those things. So you ought not just limit it to seat of honor when there is something in association with the Spirit and Yahweh and Dowd that helps us transition mortality to immortality, which is being adorned in the garments, the set-apart Spirit's garment of light. Now, the seat of honor, throne. Do you think that Yahweh preserved? I don't even know if he had one. Let's just say that Dowd really had a throne.
Okay.
Well, let's pretend like he really had one.
Okay.
Do you think Yahweh preserved it, Dowd's throne?
No.
No.
Because you have the thing with the seat of honor.
Is there a seat of honor and throne that we know is exceedingly important to Yahweh, that we know for certain that he has preserved?
Yes, we do. Ark of the Covenant.
We have it, don't we? Yes, the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is a seat, ladies and gentlemen. It is a seat. It has arms, sides, and a back. And the back are seraphim wings.
Yeah. Cherubim,
gold, which shows that you're going to become like, sit on this seat and you get wings. You become a spiritual entity. You're no longer limited by the physical limitations of gravity and feet. Man, you get wings, golden wings.
It's a deal.
Yeah, and you sit on this seat, you're forgiven. This is the seat of Pesach and Matzah and Bekurim. This is the seat that inside of the seat are the tablets, the 2 tablets with the 10 statements. Beside this seat is the Torah.
Okay, that just explains. That just explains. And when I look up Keseh, it's like numbers 3678. Right next to it, 3677 said a full moon relating to appointed times and festivals. Yeah. So when you just said that tied all that in together.
Yeah, and the full moon is when Pesach and Matzah and Bekurim are always in a full moon, aren't they?
I assumed that.
The 14th day of the month, starting at sundown on the 13th day, is a full moon. But the center, the brightest part of the full moon, because the cycle is 29 and a half days, would be at between the 14th and 15th day. So you're dealing with Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim. The full moon, that encompasses Keseh, Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim. But guess what else is at a full moon? If Towrah is the first of the month, and the 10th of the month is Yom Kippurim, what's the 15th? Which is Sukkah. Would that be a full moon?
Absolutely.
14 and a half days? Close as you can get. Full moon.
Now you'd have to know about Moed Mikros when you look up things like that and you see it. You have to have some perspective there and know these things in order to connect all the dots. Because otherwise, you say, "What's that got to do with the seat of honor and the full moon?"
Right. So that then with the realization you're dealing with the maximum light of the moon at the time that Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim and Shabuah are fulfilled, doesn't that provide some illumination to the nature of that garment?
Yeah.
And and identifies the seat of honor? Because what happened on Pesach? Wasn't the blood of the Passover lamb sprinkled on the mercy seat? Isn't it even called the mercy seat?
Well, it was where it took place where it took place.
Right.
Yeah,
what is it? So this is the mercy seat. This what we're talking about, the throne, the seat of honor of Dowd, mercy seat. He sat on it. We get to sit on it. So.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Understatement, I realize, but still.
Yeah. So then we move past it to the next statement, and it is, and upon his considered advice and counsel, and his sovereign authority to establish it and to sustain and support it with the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, and with righteousness from this time and evermore. So it begins with wa again, so it's a transition, wa, and addition. And then it's mamlaka. Now you can translate malaka, kingdom, if you wish. But you can also translate malaka upon his considered advice and counsel and sovereign authority.
Yeah, malaka, that's what it says.
Upon his realm. Right. You know, I don't think that Dowd's role is going to be as a king over a kingdom during the millennial Shabbat. I think it is more likely that it's Dowd's considered advice and counsel as a sovereign authority. He is sovereign because he's the Son of God. God is the ultimate sovereign. He's the Son of God, makes him a sovereign authority. And it's about his reign and realm, because he was the only person really for the entire time of his kingdom to reign over a unified Yisrael. So upon his considered advice and counsel of his supreme authority, of his reign, of his realm, by his kingdom, and on account of his thoughtful guidance and assistance from Malak. Malak means to guide, to assist, to provide a message. To reign by providing considered and intelligent advice and instructions, directions, and counsel. To establish it, lakun. To appoint, fashion, and form it. To authenticate it and authorize it. To prepare and become steadfast, ready, and supported. Concluded and firm with it. Now this is a verb. Hifel. Infinitive construct. Hifel means that the subject not only influences the object, but makes the object reflect his nature and reflect his interaction with the verb. The object becomes the secondary. Becomes a secondary subject. And the infinitive construct just says that this is irrespective of place or time. So upon his considered advice and counsel of his sovereign authority to establish it and to sustain it. Wa la ka'ad. To renew and uphold it. Ka'ad. To strengthen and make it secure. Refreshing it with the most favorable and nourishing substance. With the means to exercise, by the way, it's interesting here is that it in the Great Isaiah Scroll is masculine, and it in the Hu versus he, HY versus HUW in the Masoretic. The Masoretic, the pronoun is masculine, and it's feminine in the Masoretic text. So feminine, kingdom, Malachi, so you can tell that just because it's Malach with the A after it, that's feminine. So the Masoretic text, we're strengthening and supporting the kingdom. But in the Great Isaiah Scroll, it's masculine. Guess what word is masculine? Keseh, the seat of honor, the mercy seat.
Okay.
So that's what's being established, that's what's being sustained and supported, is the mercy seat. Yeah, a little thing.
Yeah.
But it's significantly different. I mean, so it tells you that God's not into establishing and supporting a government, but instead into sustaining and supporting the benefits and the attributes of that mercy seat, of the seat of honor, where we sit right beside God.
That's really good. Well done.
A little subtle
well
thing.
Done, man.
But nonetheless, it's important. That's one of the reasons I like the languages that have feminine and masculine, is because with English there wouldn't be no way to identify what it was. But here you can tell there were two things that it could be sustaining and supported, and because it's masculine, you've eliminated Malaka, kingdom, and you have highlighted Keseh, which is that adorning garment, benefiting from the full moon, and the seat of honor, the mercy seat. With the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes. Well, what is the mercy seat about? Is it not the tangible representation of the benefits of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim? And isn't Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim the means that Yahowah established to justly resolve disputes? Ms. Fun?
Yes.
All fits together then, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And what happens if you exercise good judgment regarding the means to exercise or to resolve disputes in connection with the mercy seat of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim? Don't you become vindicated? If you respond
appropriately, then of course you get all the benefits of.
And isn't the benefit tzedakah?
Yes.
Wasn't Dod himself called tzedak by Yahowah?
That's
right.
Why.
Correct.
Called.
Perfect. Vindicated. Righteous. Tzedakah. Righteous. Correct. Right. Fair. Acquitted.
Upright.
Vindicated.
Yeah.
Upright. In accordance with the standard. Receiving all the benefits with an abundant inheritance. You know, when it comes to being with Yahowah, I think there's only one thing that he can say of you that is better than Sadak or Sadaka. Sadaka is just the feminine of Sadak. Only one thing.
Oh, he is child.
Yeah, that's it.
Good.
You got it. I like, being called son is the only thing that would be better than being called righteous, correct, vindicated, acquitted.
That's a little closer relationship. Just you're
honest,
perfect. You come in.
Blameless, innocent, in accord with the
It was good, but
Dod was called called both. Yeah, Tzedakah is really, really good. I mean, if you're a Tzedakah, you're in.
You're in like Flint.
You're in like Flint. You're there. And I don't think there's any way to be Tzedakah and not be his son or daughter.
Yeah, you have to be a family member and accept everything.
Right.
Of course.
But I just think being called, God's kid is
pretty heavy duty.
Yeah, that's the best. That is the best.
That's a wowie.
But Dod was called both Sadak. That's why he's so important, because he's the antidote for Christianity. If Dod is Sadak and he violated every aspect of the Torah, but he's Sadak because he applied the Torah, he observed it correctly, applied it correctly, benefited from it correctly, and is thereby vindicated by the Torah for those reasons, then it's the Torah that saved him. not because he carried it out perfectly, not because he obeyed it, but because he understood it and acted upon it.
And that's another nail in the coffin of good old Shaul.
Yeah, and that's correct. And so he's going to sustain and support, and this is now the mercy seat, the seat of honor, with the means to exercise good judgment and to justly resolve disputes, and with righteousness, being correct, fair, vindicating and acquitting, from this time, min ata, and forevermore, wa ad olam. You know, if you wanted to think that, by the way, that ad was eternal, and now you see it with olam, and you realize, wait a minute.
It's forevermore.
Ad just means more or until, and it's olam that's the word for
continually,
eternal. Right. If God wanted to say eternal Father, he would have written ad, or ab for Father, olam. But he put
that's
olam
correct.
here just to make sure that you'd be thinking.
Paying attention.
Correct.
That was a trick.
Yeah. Well, it's just God's way of saying, you know, I'm going to help you out here. If you're looking for reinforcement, here you go.
I knew some of us are slow.
You know, by the way, there is a concluding statement to this.
Beautiful.
And the concluding statement is rather important because guess whose name has not been mentioned yet? The only real name that's essential.
Yahweh.
Yeah, correct. The deep devotion and passion, the zeal and fervor, the strong desire to accomplish something special, the ardent love. In fact, kina can be rendered jealousy. Jealousy is a really positive term if you look at it as faithfulness in a relationship. Right. You know, you're not going to be good with your wife Terry deciding, you know what I think I want to do is spend my time equally with all the men on the block. Not going to go over well. You're in any loving relationship, you're zealous and jealous of your relationship, and Yahweh is with Yisrael. He is with Dod. He is with his covenant members, and that's why he says, you know, if you're going to be around other gods, you're not going to be in my presence.
That's right out of the
So kina is a very passionate term. Devotion and passion, zeal and fervor.
Jealousy, passion, for the sake of,
right. Ardent love of Yahowah. Who did he call beloved?
Dod.
Who did he dearly love? Dod. Of the spiritual implements, the Shabbat will make this happen. So it's Yahweh that's going to make this happen. So even if all the way through here you just forgot about all the conflicts why it couldn't be Yosha. Yosha's not named, is he?
No, not here.
Yahweh is. Who's going to make this happen? Yahweh.
Yeah, that's a promise there.
Yeah. And the promise is by Yahweh. Yeah, even if you didn't know that his name was Yahweh Saves, and you couldn't figure that part out, this is Yahweh.
Well, you still see Yahowah. What else could you know?
Yes. And there
right
it is.
There. And even if you don't pronounce it right, you still see Yahowah.
Right. So here's the final seven, the future seven.
Okay.
In fact, I've got two sets of seven. Let's just flow them the one into another. Here's just the recap of everything we've just gone over. For indeed, because truly and surely, emphasizing this statement, and to show a contrast with what has come before, while conveying causation to reveal the reason he exists, and also demonstrating how these things may appear simultaneous, even to overlap, while in actuality they transpire in an entirely different time. A child, an ordinary boy who grows up to become a young man, is born. He was conceived and brought forth through a woman impregnated by his father, arriving among us and near us. A son, a male descendant, the offspring of a mother and father, was provided and placed near us for a limited period of time. He was given for our benefit, was appointed and bestowed for us, and he was devoted to facilitating our approach. So then, with regard to the person being written about, the means to engage and endure, to be empowered and liberated, should we desire to learn from his mindset, was, is, and shall always exist, as part of the continued succession of events which transpired upon his ridgeline, and in conjunction with his repetitive work, the eagerness in which he pursued his calling early in life, and his passion to shoulder and not shirk responsibility. His designation, reputation, and renown was read, recited, and designated as, and should be invited and summoned as, was called out and welcomed as, was known and reckoned as, a counselor providing outstandingly brilliant advice, a consultant, directions, and thought-provoking guidance for us to deliberate, which are extraordinarily insightful, an analyst who proposes the agenda and reveals the purpose of the marvelous plan which sets us apart, an advisor and mentor who speaks out and urges those who listen to follow the directions and thinking that he is presenting because it's reasonable, valuable, wonderful, empowering, even prophetic. A valiant and heroic individual with a prominent standing in the community of God, a powerful and courageous person who prevails on behalf of the Almighty, a champion confirming the influence and strengthening nature of the Mighty One. An eternal witness providing restoring and everlasting testimony, sharing evidence which is enduring and conveying information regarding the perpetual and continued existence of the Father. The one who conveys and represents the official position, the authorized and endorsed patron who acts and delivers the sanctioned means to prevail regarding reconciliation and restoration, salvation and companionship, restitution and redemption, peace and prosperity, satisfaction and favor, and association based upon mutual affection and friendship, delivering health and prosperity, contentment and tranquility, tremendously increasing the ability to learn about and to the largest extent possible greatly respond to the means to engage, providing an abundance of information while imparting instruction learned as a student, teaching how to become familiar with the guidance needed to accept the provision to endure, acting upon the means to be liberated, diligently studying and then explaining the particular pattern of behavior associated with the one, and then the who, what, why, and how that can be learned regarding the capacity to persist and persevere, growing on a scale of spatial dimensions as a disciple eager to learn from one who was taught by the best, who received extensive, clear, and compelling revelations, which prepared him to intelligently convey the mindset needed to probe and question the means to awe-inspiring enlightenment, an enormous empowerment. And so then, adding these things together, and as a result, reconciliation and restoration, complete satisfaction, the blessings of an entirely favorable circumstance, total contentment, overwhelming prosperity, affectionate companionship, and salvation are without end, never cease, and cannot be negated, remaining unbounded and limitless before the throne and seat of honor, which is clothed in association with the high status and dignity of the empowering robes and royal authority of Dod, the beloved, and in conjunction with the light of the full moon, and therefore Pesach, Matzah, Bakurim, and Sukkah. And upon his considered advice and intelligent counsel, as well as his sovereign authority, by his kingdom and on account of his thoughtful guidance and insightful assistance, to establish with it, authenticated, authorized, and sustained, supporting and upholding it with the most favorable and nourishing substance, with the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, depicting how the judge will decide each case, remaining completely fair and yet consistent, and with righteousness, therefore being correct, right, fair and just, acquitting and vindicating in a manner which is honest and in full accord with the prescribed standard, providing the beneficiaries with an abundant inheritance from this time, coinciding with this declaration, and forevermore, throughout all time. The deep devotion and passion of Yahowah, of the spiritual implements, and his strong desire to accomplish something special, even his ardent love, will make this happen, fashioning this result, and performing in this way. Yeshayah 9, 6, and 7. And thus begin the final chapter of life on earth. Yeah, you take something that is obviously wrong and misdirected and contradictory, turn it into something that is transformational. Something that
for the people that
overwhelming.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I just said you could not hear anything from God more important than what is just said, so long as you know what he's actually saying.
Well, to that, you don't need somebody to be here and just say, boy, that's really good, Craig, or that's right and everything. And the reason I do most of this is this is not creative writing. Over the last 11 years, I've seen you extrapolate more and more and more because you understand more and more and more, and you have more depth to each one of these words, and you put it more into your translations. But I can honestly say on this one, as so many before it, when I go through everything I can find, there's nothing in anything you said that can't be supported.
Yeah,
so
this time I don't really think it is. First of all, I don't see anything wrong with extrapolation. I think extrapolation.
No, I understand it, but as long as it's in the context of what you're saying, we have a lot of words
in this particular case, there's nothing here that's extrapolated.
No,
now, I will tell you what we just read is amplified. Amplified means that rather than looking at a single word like the Torah is nice, shalom means peace, we're going to amplify our translation so that it reflects.
What else does it mean?
It's like taking a microscope and amplifying the image of a cell so that you can really see its full dimensions. So this represents the full dimension of each of these words. But there's no extrapolation here.
Yeah, but it's quite, it's amazing because when you're reading this and you want to embrace this stuff, you have a right, or you should want to check it all out for yourself to find out. And by George, you won't be disappointed.
No.
It really is. It says all those things. As you was reading it, I'm looking at different notes back and forth, and I'm saying, yeah, that's there, and everything we did when you broke it down before. There wasn't anything. Yeah.
Why, Kirk, did it take 2,700 years to render it accurately?
Nobody got out of the foxhole and did it. I mean, once you got out, a bunch of us followed suit.
Obviously. It's been 2,700 years. This statement has been known for 2,700 years. The Masoretic text of it is accurate.
Yeah.
And what did we find? One pronoun that was misidentified? Masoretic text is accurate. The Great Isaiah Scroll is complete in this regard.
Yeah.
This is knowable.
Yeah.
So why did it take?
This is on display in Jerusalem.
Right.
And
why did it take 2,700 years? That is correct. They got this new museum of the Bible. Why?
You talk about the one of the chicken man?
Yeah. Why is it that in all of this time, nobody has realized that Bible means with the Lord?
With Baal.
Yeah, and that it is indistinguishable from the Hebrew word Babel, which means to intermix and therefore to confuse.
Yeah.
and that is the nature of Christianity. It's a conglomeration of pagan religions under different names designed to confuse people. And the book that they say is the Word of God is Babel, the whore of Babylon, to confuse. It's not hard to figure this stuff out. Ba is the preposition. It means with.
Mm-hmm.
Bel is the name of the Babylonian god. It's written throughout the Torah prophets. Bel became Baal with the Canaanites and with the in Hebrew. Bel and Baal, same word. Mean exactly the same thing. The Lord. And every place we turn, the Lord is condemned. It's Satan. So it is amazing, Kirk, that while there isn't anything we did here that required any fresh revelation, any unusual insights, any special skill, there's nothing. Mm-hmm. All we did here is look up the words, examine them as thoroughly and as closely as we could, with an open mind, being resolutely rational, and clearing our minds of religious clutter so that we could render these words in a manner that's consistent with the context and Yahweh's nature, realizing there's only one person that's being discussed here, and that's David. That's all we did. Mm-hmm. We just gave the words a fair shake.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't easy. It took a lot of time.
Yeah, far more on yours, on your part.
Right.
But,
when the first time I did this 15 years ago, I got it wrong. I looked it up in in your basic lexicons, and you look up the first so-called definition of each word is the word that's found in every Bible translation. And so if you're not alerted to the fact that this was all specifically designed to deceive people, they wanted a big government. They wanted governments approved. They wanted it to be their Jesus.
Yeah, and they wanted endorsement from Jesus.
Right. They wanted Jesus to be Almighty God. That's what they wanted. And so if you're not careful, if you haven't done a lot of translate, you might be fooled to think that Gabor means Almighty.
No.
Yeah, but it doesn't. You might be fooled to think that Eternal Father could be provided by a preposition that means until. But if you've translated Ed 200 times, and you know that it's written the same way, and it means restoring an eternal witness, providing everlasting testimony, you're not going to be fooled. So it takes some time. You have to become familiar with what the words mean and what they're used. If you hadn't, how many times have we come across Sarah? Mm-hmm. So when you see it, and aren't we naturally clued into when we see the MI concept, which is from the MY in Hebrew, that before an important verb? Aren't we clued in based upon mikra?
Yeah.
To recognize, well, this is a way of distinguishing the verb such that we ponder and think about and we question the implications of these things.
Well, I've got in a total habit now of every word has to, if it's not already a verb, you have to look up the verb. And I even look up the root. Misra, you go to Sarah, but if you go to the SAR, or SR, it means turning the head by teaching, instruction, and guidance. I mean...
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So, anyway.
Yeah, and you ought to look, like I've been translating Yeshaya 10. Mm-hmm. And in Yeshaya 10, there's a lot of names. I mean, a lot of names of places. So if you don't look up where those places have been mentioned before, well, then you've got no chance to understand why they're there. So if you want to look up Miss Sarah, well, don't you think the first thing you ought to do is say, okay, I want to look it up and see where else it's used so I get it right, and you find out, wait a minute, there's nowhere else that it's used.
Well, this is it.
This is it. Yeah, and then you're in an entirely different mindset in terms of understanding it.
I don't know how you can get government out of that.
No, I don't know.
Just no way.
Of course, we've talked about the fact that if you did get government out of it, it's a lay down hand. Because,
well, you tend to lose.
Yosha did not have the government on his shoulder, and it was the government, Rome.
Yeah, and he's not in favor of governments. I mean, when a guy talks about governments, religion, schemes of military schemes and economic schemes all day long, from front to back of the Torah,
Yosha got 10.
Come on,
right? It's about the Assyrian and the Assyrian influence and being head of the government of Assyria, the biggest influence on it, and it's all negative, man. All negative. And finally God said, finally my people are going to stop relying.
It's just so sad that it takes so long. I mean, it should be coming out in droves. At least Israel should.
Yeah. Yeah, it should.
Anyway, but I know that ain't the way it works. He's already told us how it works, how it's going to work. So.
Yeah. But it's I think the key thing here to take away beyond the fact that this is a profound insight as to how we should go about shaping our relationship with Yahweh and how we come to know Him, and the answer is learn through Dode. That while these insights haven't been conveyed until now, and it's been 2,700 years. Kirk, I appreciate what you're doing, and I have fun doing this, but quite honestly, there is nothing we have done here that is special. We just looked up the words.
Well,
that's all we did. We just looked at.
When the teacher says, go to the dictionary and look it up, and you go, teacher, just tell me what it means. So go over there and look it up. I'm telling you, it's worth the trip.
We looked it up. That is right. That's all we really did is look it up, and we had the right attitude.
Yeah.
That's it. Rather than us celebrating the fact that we've sharing this in a way that for the first time makes sense and we can benefit from it, we almost want to lament what's been wrong with humanity for the last 2,700 years.
I say it all the time.
Right?
Hey guys, come on. Why couldn't you be telling me this?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have told me this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or something? Not 10 years ago. That's when I ran across you. But yeah. What was all those PhDs for? You couldn't tell me.
Yeah. But we've got more than 10,000 pages of translations and analysis, and there isn't a single thought, not a single insight, not a single word that couldn't have been derived and ascertained by anyone willing to do the same thing. Just read what's there, look up the words.
Look up the words. You got a dictionary? Got a lexicon?
Right. Right. Yeah. Think it through. And you have a big library. I've got one as well, and I use a lot of electronic tools. But there are these lexicons. Most of them are available online, free.
Yeah.
They're interlinears online, free.
Yes.
There's Hebrew English dictionaries online, free. There's Hebrew grammar aids online, free.
All kind of word searches you can look up each word.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do it that way as well. And in combination with is what I do.
Right.
And we have 3 or 4 things open at the same time.
Right. And if you want to know the history of some place, you can Google it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There are the tools to do everything you need to do to understand this. It's just that no one wants to put in the effort. And those that might be willing to put in the effort don't want to go where these words lead, because these words lead directly to Yahowah and directly away from the caricature known as Jesus Christ. They lead to Yahowah.
Just won't let it go with it.
Via his beloved son, Dod. Yeah, there's a reason that Yahowah called him my beloved son. There's a reason he said that he was Sadak. And he's confirming all of that right here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that this is as interesting and as profound as anything we've done so far, this analysis of Yeshaya 9, 6, and 7.
I think it's way powerful. I'm just amazed.
Yeah, wait till you're now in soon you'll have it as a complete chapter. But meeting the Assyrian, wow, what a thrill that was! And Yeshaya 10.
Yeah, I've only just begun that, but that's wow.
Yeah, meeting the Assyrian, what a thrill!
And it's really the same story, the same technique, the same guy doing it, and it just confirms it unbelievably.
Yeah, it does. It is actually, we're going through Yeshaya because I want to end in Yeshaya 14, where Hasatan is named and is associated with Babylon, and he explains his role in religion, that he wants to be worshipped above the Most High. That's why he uses the title the Lord, and he is the Lord God Almighty of Christianity, is Allah in Islam. And that he tells you that is his purpose. Well, that is repeated in Yeshaya 10, which you wouldn't be surprised. It's only 4 chapters prior to it. Mm-hmm. But you learn specifically that Satan is an implement. And you're told explicitly mm-hmm. what Satan's mindset is, why he's doing these things. It's really a thorough and complete explanation of how Satan intervenes in human affairs, and why he does so.
It explains a lot about the Torah one as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see him right there.
Right. Explains a lot about Paul, a lot about the Torah one, a lot about the Assyrian is Satan, is the adversary. And you might say, well, I thought he was Babylonian. There's the whore of Babylon. Between Assyria and Babylon. And
nothing. It's the same confusion.
Yeah, what's interesting, too, is that when Yeshaya 10 was written, while it's not about him, Sargon was the king of Assyria. You know mm-hmm. what Sargon is best known for?
Refresh me.
Change the name of the Assyrian god. The Assyrian head god was Asher. That's how you get it.
Oh, it's Baal? Or Baal?
Yes, Baal, yeah. Yes.
So he adopted the Babylonian
name, the Lord. He's the one mm-hmm. that renamed the Assyrian god so that it was the same as the Babylonian god as the Lord.
Yeah, and the Christian Church changed Yahweh's name to Lord. Look at Strong's.
Yes, exactly.
You don't believe me? Look it up. I think it's 3060 or 3068.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Look it up. Yeah, look it up. Yeah. 7,000 times.
7,000 times. Makes you want to scream. It's
particularly
Yahweh,
the third statement etched in stone. It says that negating my name is unforgivable. Yeah, it's unforgivable.
Now that is really frightening.
Yeah, it's unforgivable.
It's bad enough that he says it and you shouldn't do it, but he says, I ain't going to forgive you, period. And there's no recourse if you keep this up.
Right. Yeah, it's the third statement on the first of the 2 tablets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You cause my name to be for naught, my name Yahweh to be for naught. It's unforgivable. That's bad.
Wow.
Because this is what it means, and I want people to have an appreciation of this. If you are the victim of religion, if you're not judged, there is no forgiveness, there is no condemnation. You've just squandered your life. If you are not forgiven, then you are being judged. If you are being judged and are not forgiven, there's only one place
One place you can go, wind up incarceration.
Sheol. Right.
Sheol. Mm-hmm.
So by not being forgiven, it means that you're going to Sheol, as opposed to being the victims of religion and your soul simply ceasing to exist. So it replacing Yahweh's name with the Lord ensures that individual with eternal condemnation.
Yeah, that makes the things go up my spine. Just go, oh, God.
Yeah. Why would you do that? And every Christian pastor is guilty of doing it.
Get on your knees and praise to the Lord. Go drop dead, man.
In fact, the Bible is named after that. With Baal, with the Lord.
They're all with Baal.
Right.
That Old Testament with that dead God.
Yeah. You know that Yeshua 10, God says, I'm not going to forgive those that write Scripture.
Yeah, I got that. I read that, yes.
Whew.
Wow. Wow. New Testament. Wow.
Oh, yeah, and
well, I mean, just
all
what you did.
Scripture is inspired by God and used for correction and teaching. Oh, guess who wrote that? Paul.
Oh,
yeah.
Paul.
Scripture is a Latin word. It's a Latin word
from the scriptoriums.
Yeah, from the scriptoriums, exactly. Yeah, which is the scriptoriums would have done Homer proud. It was the land of make-believe.
Well put. That is absolutely true.
Oh, yeah, boy, I tell you what.
Make up a God.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll send you a tomorrow. After I get a little bit further in it, but I'll send you tomorrow a rewrite of 18 with the warning that I told you about. That Terry got reading that long paragraph where I described the megalomaniacs of history and was pretty disgusted by it, and I understand it's rough, and
it's pretty
as
raw.
a guy, I mean, it turned my stomach to look it up and to read it, but it was important to convey the information, but not everybody is going to want to read it.
Yeah, it needs to be there though.
And I have a different view on this kind of stuff. I want to know. I really want to know it, but I wrote the preface just before the show began. Based upon what you had suggested from Terry, which says, if you're squeamish, don't read this. And if you already know that man is not basically good, there's nothing to be gained by reading this. So there's an appropriate warning on it. But so those things have been added, and but throughout that chapter, Kirk, I really do cop an attitude. I mean, it's God brings up His feces. Excrement. Reference again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's very much in your face, that whole chapter, and then to recognize that you're dealing with the Assyrian is in fact Satan. Yeah, that is not what you would call the uplifting chapter. It really is for me, though. I mean, I've got a confession. The reason that having the opportunity to meet Satan and get to know him is so uplifting to me is because I understand how he works in religion. And one of the things that God was really good about is he constantly uses the reference in 10:10 to Yahweh of the Shabbat, of the regime of spiritual implements. And he's really clear that the Assyrian ain't nothing but an implement. There's lots of them.
Well, that confirms. That's
he
very
is
confirming.
just an implement. He is one of them. So you're not going to blow it out of proportion.
Yeah.
You're not going to. He's just a tool. And as a tool, you aren't going to be afraid of him. And so you want to know how this tool is wielded, because it explains the whole concept of religion and the concept of government. So it's
he can't get you, and armed with what Dode wrote. Man can't get you. Whoever he inspires to get you, they can't get you. So that should be very comforting, and especially as we get nearer and nearer to this horror.
Don't fear, don't revere.
No.
Anything that
give men respect at all.
Yeah, don't give them any respect. Don't give them any fear. Don't let that stuff bother you. No reason to let it bother you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really, really good stuff. All right, my friend. Well, I'll work on it more and get it to you.
Where you want to be on this show next week?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I really, to be fair, we should return back to chapter 9 of observations and sync up this
just
program with.
Just extend it out from what we do in the
Yeah,
morning?
that's what we should do, and sync the two programs up. It's just easier on our whole mindset and preparation. But once we finish this meeting with the Assyrian, and we really come to know this is Satan and how he operates, it's going to be pretty hard not to want to go there.
Yeah. That's why we're here on this one.
Yes.
Hey, look,
it's going to be hard.
If you want to know all this stuff, you go to
JB's
website and you start reading.
Yeah.
And go anywhere you want in there, and it's great. Well,
yeah, it's really, really hard not to go there. So.
Okay. Well, we'll give it the old college trial.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not what you wanted to
show,
hear,
and then we'll get into this jerk.
Yeah.
Satan.
Fortunately, we're not trying to be perfect here. We're giving our best effort to sharing what we've learned and to share it as enthusiastically as we can. And we do this for our own enjoyment and edification, and it's like the most beautiful rainbow and sunset. It's more beautiful if you have a chance to share it with somebody.
Absolutely. No, I have no qualms whatsoever about you going from here to here, here to here. Just let me know what you're doing so I won't sound too ignorant as we approach it, so I can do a little bit of lookup, because it takes a little while.
There are things that you have to take in chronological order.
Yes,
not everything.
Yeah. Well, you remember you've got
to build on the. Go ahead.
This is a book we're covering. It's almost like a book report on the shows and sharing highlights and stuff and certain in-depth things and so forth. But the whole thing is to get it in writing. Number one.
Correct.
So that people can sit down and really digest it the way they did Yada Yahweh and Question Paul and Intro to God and so on. So that's there, and people are printing that now and putting out.
Yeah, these 4 books are not meant to be a dissertation in the sense of conducting novel research. It's a book report.
Mm-hmm.
The book is Yahweh's Torah, Prophets and Psalms, and reporting on them. Yeah, this is a very elaborate book report.
Yeah.
More in keeping with the thesis, where you review existing literature and you try to put the pieces together so that it's understood more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a thesis than a dissertation. Now, I think it has the purpose of a dissertation. On a PhD dissertation, you have to advance the knowledge of humanity.
Knowledge of
something
something new that's not there before.
Contribute. Right, you have to contribute. Well, I think we've come up with 500 insights.
Plenty of that.
That advance the knowledge of humanity, but not because they're because we've come up with
them. They care.
They were just always there. We just noticed them.
Yeah. Well, where do you think these books will have the most impact, other than the small group of people who come to know them and read them, and of course that's us, and it's obviously wonderful to us. But I'm getting more and more thinking about the Jerusalem and the end times.
It's all.
And most of them will be able to speak English, And
I was really happy that we stumbled into this and we figured it out, and he's happy to have us. But we cease to be Goyim and become Yisrael.
Yeah.
So it's just and he's only
adopted
concerned
brothers
about Yisrael.
Staying here.
He's concerned. His concern is Yisrael. He's coming back for Yisrael. He loves Yisrael. His promises are Yisrael. He's coming back to Yisrael for Yisrael, and so and they will change prior to his return. I'm just hoping that what we are doing will play some role in changing the mindset of Yisrael. By the way, it's a small number. God says even a young child.
Oh, even then, it's still very small.
Yeah, even a young child could count the remainder. He says, I don't care if Yisrael was as numerous as the sand on the sea. It's just going to be a small remainder. And that small remainder is so small, it can be counted and written down by a small child.
Well, that was the passage with Jerusalem and who survives. That's tiny. Tiny. Yeah, I said it was,
Yeah, it's right here, and it's part of Yeshaya 10. He reinforces that.
I had no idea about Yeshaya scroll being this much. I knew it was a big scroll. I knew it was a big deal.
Yeah, this much information.
But I didn't realize it was this big a deal. This is a big deal.
No, and I really didn't have any idea that so much of it was about the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the
they always talk about it. It's all about Yosha, and forward.
But it's not the case. That's not the case. Yeah. It's about religion and condemning religion and politics and militarism. And that's been the whole theme, is God condemning government and politics and militarism and religion. That's right at the beginning.
And never misses an opportunity to say that either. No.
Right, and he says it over and over again. That is the core to all of this. That's why Dode's testimony was so important.
Talk about an anti-government, anti-religious fellow. That's Dode.
Oh, and by the way, one of the things that Yeshaya 10 has in it is I have a personal wish. I said, my personal wish on the 1 to a million things that are important is a 1, but it is, it's important to me. I would like to be one of the witnesses against the likes of Paul and
Netrao,
and Hadrian and these Muhammad. God's really clear. He says, that He's going to send His malach against those that the adversary has misled and used, but along with them are going to be His most resilient and informative, most blunt witnesses. The individuals and He says that they're there because He says, I've illuminated them. I'm the one that caused them to reflect my light. But they're good. We're right there. We're right there.
Boy, what a scroll!
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really good stuff. So we get to so long as I'm reading it right, and that we'd be counted among.
We flesh it out.
We may not be. We may not be by the time that this all happens. There could be, like for example, we know for certain that Eliah and Enoch are going to be the most steadfast, straightforward,
witnesses right there in Jerusalem. Absolutely.
Brilliant witnesses. So we aren't going to hold a candle to them. But and so it.
We watch.
You're not talking about them, and we may just be watching. But it seems to suggest that we'll be participatory, and it's God's nature to have His flawed people participate. Yeah. So it's certainly in His nature. He is not going to be disappointed that we're not as good a witness as He is. I'm not expecting it. So
cool.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I will be with you next week.
All right. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Good
night.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Night.